Welcome to Health Info. Our speaker tonight is Tim Liscomb, a nutritional health specialist, and he's going to educate us on health tonight and supplements.
All right.
Thanks for having me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tim Liscomb. I'm a nutritional health specialist. I'm actually a Food Drug Technologist, and I own and operate Tim's Whole Health, a health food store. My background, I initially got into this, I studied drugs and food, really boring. And then I got hired by George Weston, the guy who owns Loblaws and Superstore, and I was hired by their pharmacy to kind of bring alternative medicine into mass, into large chain, in the day before it was popular. So I spent the beginning of my career doing that, and then I left and I went to Jansen's Pharmacy, did many years over there doing compounding, helping with hormones, and I always specialized in natural medicine. I just worked with doctors and pharmacists. And then when I got sick of doctors and pharmacists, I left. I went to Nutrition House, and I learned how kind of the corporate mass part of it went, and I learned. So I kind of went around and I took from all of my previous employers, and I learned from their mistakes and what they did right. And then I finally broke off and started doing it on my own. Still work with doctors and pharmacists, believe it or not, but just not under them, with them. All right, so that's who I am. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what's going on in the industry, some of the popular health products, the natural health products, the supplements that are popular. And then we'll do a little bit of a question and answer. I also, from my pharmacy days, I specialize in what are called drug-induced nutrient depletions, or how medications affect people, how they affect nutrients and how that leads to side effects. And I'll go into that a little bit as well. Okay, so the popularity of nutritional supplements, it's kind of off the chart. Back in the day, it used to be myself and a couple of Deb. And there was like a few of us who were doing it, and it was obscure, and nobody believed in it. It was pseudo-medicine. Nowadays, it's gone to the extreme. And at least half of Canadians are supplementing with at least one supplement, and 2/3 of those are taking more than one supplement daily. There's a growing interest in complementary and alternative medicine. Generation X and all the generations under me, they don't want to end up like their parents and grandparents on a bunch of medication. They want to invest in their health. They want to take a proactive approach and not end up. So in light of that, our government wanted money. So they formed the Natural Health Product Directorate, and they decided to regulate, which is good and bad. In Canada, every product has I won't bore you too much with the regulations, but an NPN number, which means Health Canada has issued that number based on human clinical studies. They inspect the raw material, they inspect the people making it. So it offers some legitimacy to the industry, which is nice. So right now there's over 50,000 natural health products approved for sale in Canada, opposed to only 8,000 prescription drugs. So there's literally 6 times more supplements than pharmaceuticals. So basically, to get the NPN, you have to prove safety and efficacy. You have to prove it works. You can't say something works if it doesn't work. So in the States, and this is often confused, and I hear from doctors and I hear from people all the time, if you hurt somebody, the FDA will come down on you. You can literally sell somebody sugar and say it's a supplement. That's fine. But if you hurt somebody, the FDA will prosecute. In Canada, we take more of a proactive approach. You can't sell it unless it is what it is and it does what you say it does. So in light of all that, there's things like the first one here, milk-based protein. It has Health Canada's approval to actually increase bone density. So patients who can't tolerate bisphosphonates, hydrocal, alendronate, the drugs, which unfortunately have side effects like osteonecrosis of the jaw and spontaneous femur fractures and GI side effects. But Health Canada actually allows them to say it increases bone density based on clinical studies. N-acetylcysteine, which is one of my favorite supplements, it's for bronchial inflammation, it detoxifies your liver, it's actually the antidote for Tylenol overdose, it takes heavy metals out of your body, helps your immune system, and it increases what's called glutathione, or the enzyme in our body that detoxifies us. And all of those are approved medical claims. Vinpocetine is actually a prescription drug in all of the world except for Canada. And it's used for intelligence, for age-related cognitive decline. So in dementia and Alzheimer's, it has that approval from Health Canada. And like I said, if you went to Britain, you would need a prescription from a doctor to get it. Lutein, one of the popular ones for eyes. for macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of blindness in Canada, cataracts, retinopathy, and diabetes, and it has a protective effect. 5-HTP, which is a kind of serotonin precursor, has been studied for fibromyalgia pain, for depression, for sleep, for eating disorders. All of this stuff's going on. And it's strange because Health Canada now says, okay, you can say that. You can say it increases the bone density, but insurance companies won't pay for it. ODB won't pay for it. You know, it's not covered by anybody, which is total BS in my opinion. You know, if you're going to allow the claim from the same department of the government that gives a DIN number to a drug, then it should be the prescriber's right and the patient's right to choose which form they want to take and have it covered under plans. So that's kind of hopefully the next approach, is that there's a lot of people in the industry that are lobbying to get this, you know, if you're going to say it, then stand up and prove it. All right, and so another thing that happened was previously things like tryptophan, which is from Turkey. It's the amino acid from Turkey, but it's a precursor to serotonin, to happiness, and to melatonin, to sleep. It was illegal. It was prescription only. Up until like 5 years ago, maybe, totally prescription. For 25 years, kept off the market, kept out of your hands. Carnitine, which is used by our cells to uptake fat and start burning fat, so it benefits the heart and the brain. Again, prescription. All of these things previously were prescription, and now because of NPNs, the government has given them back, so we can actually buy this stuff again, which is kind of nice. It's a bit of a trade-off with the government, as usual. It's never just give, it's always give and take. But we have some cool stuff back, which is nice. The major categories, obviously, you know, the general ones that people know about. There's a lot of obscure stuff. Like I said, there's 50,000 natural health products. There's a lot of weird stuff in the industry, but most people just take the kind of 4 main categories. Multivitamins are still really strong. You know, I tell people when they walk in my store, I'll buy you a box of multivitamins if you can tell me one food that has selenium.
I won't say it.
I can do it. I'll buy you a box of
No, I was thinking of a certain kind of nut.
It is a certain kind of
Yes.
nut, right? It is
Yes.
Brazil nut.
Brazil
Yes.
nuts, yeah.
And everybody looks at me with this blank look. And they almost feel ashamed. They don't know. So I ask them something a little more simple. Where does vitamin B6 come from? Same look. I'm like, wow, it's amazing how little we know about the nutrients that keep us alive. It's not taught to us. None of us have a clue how much we need, where it's found. It just blows my mind. So multivitamins, obviously, it's like insurance on your vehicle, right? Do you need it? Yeah. Is it nice to know it's there? Yep. Do you pay money for it? Yep. So that's kind of the logic behind it. You're getting a little bit of everything. Not a bad idea. Omega-3s, essential fatty acids, still going strong. Bone and joint health, picking up speed. Vitamin D, I'll get to that in a little bit, but that's off the charts. And probiotics and digestive, I tell people, the majority of my job is depression, anxiety, sleep, and digestion. And they're all mental health issues. The world we're living in, the stress we endure every day is having a profound effect on our health. So those are the top categories. And they're growing about 30% per year. I think in the States it was over $60 billion last year spent just on nutritional health products, not on organic food, just on supplements, and it's about $6 to $7 billion in Canada last year. So growing, yeah, and Dr. Oz, Gifford Jones, Dr. Axe, all these people on the internet and stuff, it's fueling it, right? It's putting in people's consciousness. So what happens when things get big? Well, big fish come along and eat other fish, and big fish eat little fish, and all the way up the chain, and that's exactly what we're seeing. You know, Procter & Gamble comes in and buys New Chapter, this organic food multivitamin supplement line owned by a multinational conglomerate. Pfizer now owns Centrum. They own those little emergency packages that's owned by Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. Centrum and Caltrate, kind of big ones that we knew, are owned by Pfizer. Pfizer bought Wyeth Pharmaceuticals. So again, big fish eating little fish. Bayer, the largest drug company in the world, now owns Monsanto, which is the largest food producer in the world. And nobody sees a problem with that, then we all got a problem. You know, that's not the way the world should be going. Interestingly, prior to Monsanto selling to Bayer, the top 5 shareholders were the same top 5 shareholders of Whole Foods, which is now owned by Amazon. So, like, they got their hands in all of the pockets. They own One A Day and Ibero Gas. Clorox, the bleach company, the company made billions selling bleach, now owns Canada's largest probiotic company, which is kind of irony. Kill the bacteria, then buy the bacteria. So Renew Life is now owned by Clorox. Jameson, which was solely owned up until 3 years ago, one guy owned it. I'm not a big fan of the company, but he sold it now to a holding group who's bought Lorna Vanderhage, and they just bought Progressive and Precision and Iron Vegan. So on and on. Sisu was sold, who was owned by a crazy little guy in Finland, Victoria, who owned the Finlandia pharmacy he sold. And Nestle recently just acquired from a Canadian company called Atrium. They bought Garden of Life, which is huge, Trophic, Douglas Labs, Genestra, Pure Encapsulation, Wolbenzyme. They just bought it all for $2.7 billion. Now what this means, and I don't want everybody to leave here with kind of a sour taste, and Tim's a pessimist, although I'm a realist. You know, these companies, it's future casting. Like I said, they see where it's going. They see the trend. They see the market. They see your money. And that's what they're doing. They're preemptively buying stuff because they know if this trend continues, it's profitable. So in defense of Nestle, and I'm not a Nestle fan, I think they're bastards and pardon my language. But I think, you know, like, you know, the CEO who was running it wanted to privatize water. They wanted companies to own the global supply of water, right? They fired him. They didn't like that. They fired him because too much bad press. They recently sold all of their chocolate manufacturing off. Nestle, the company made billions selling chocolate bars, no longer wants chocolate. They sold Ferrero. They're like, we don't want to contribute to the global obesity epidemic. We don't want to sell confections. So they got rid of it. They backed out of the International Grocers Association. The bastards who lobby the governments to hide GMO, to hide Monsanto, to mislabel food, to confuse consumers. That IGA, Nestle said, sorry. Anybody who knows me knows I express myself with vulgarity sometimes. They said no, we want nothing to do with it. The fourth largest food producer just told them no and walked out, which is going to shake them. And obviously now starts the consumers kind of pushing towards more non-GMO, less Monsanto. And right now on Earth, 1% of the global farmland is certified organic. By 2020, Nestle is paying farmers to increase that to 4%. They're paying farmers to sit on their land and not farm and not use Roundup and not promote. So they can now quadruple the organic farmland on Earth. One company. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not justifying what Nestle's doing, but Nestle's doing what they think you want them to do, where your money's going to end up in their pocket, which is a brilliant and expensive risk. So that's kind of the way the global market's going. And it's same, I don't want to even get into the food industry because if you see what's going on in the organic food world, it's just like big fish all over the place swallowing it up. Okay, so what to avoid? You know, supplements are supplements, and the kind of irony I see to this is the government is so weird about regulating active ingredients, and you can't say this, and you can't do this, and yet the non-medicinal ingredients, all the other crap they put in the pills, yeah, you can do whatever you want, which is kind of irony. So, you know, watch for synthetic vitamins. I tell everybody all the time, synthetic vitamin E, synthetic beta-carotene has been shown to increase risk of lung cancers, even if you smoked 20 years ago. So watch synthetic stuff. Bioavailability, like if you're going to put something in your mouth, you really want it to be absorbed into the blood and have some function. So zinc oxide, calcium carbonate, like they're just cheap forms. You're not getting what you're paying for, and they're not that they hurt you necessarily, although tin is kind of weird. But you know, don't pay for things that you're not actually getting.
How can you tell?
Yeah, that's kind of difficult, because the pharmacist, no offense to my previous colleagues, but they tell you, yeah, oyster shell calcium, 500 milligrams calcium. But it's not true. It takes a bit of research. The better companies tend to use better raw material in general. And a lot of people think it has to cost more. That is not true at all. You know, like vitamin D, for example, if it's not in an oil, you may as well not take it. You're not absorbing any of it. So, and it's actually less expensive to buy the oil emulsified forms than to buy the equivalent amount of the tablets. So, you know, it's just about talking to people who know. The internet's full of useful information. Kind of broad.
Guys like you.
Yeah, well, you know, I said what I do is not just sell product. What I do is research the industry. What I do is look at the individual, their medication, their diet, their lifestyle, and their supplements, and try to. And there's a few of us around for sure. And don't fall into BS. Like I said, lutein, and everybody kind of nods their head a little bit. They've heard of it. But what's the real dose, right? Like you look at these multivitamins putting like 250 micrograms, like a quarter of a milligram, and saying it's going to stop macular degeneration? Well, no, it's not. It's not the proper dose. So just watch for a lot of the funny stuff that goes on.
What did it say about green tea?
Like 60 milligrams for weight loss, like the 1-a-day weight loss formula has 60 milligrams. That's non-therapeutic. It's catching the consumer to buy their
I
product.
drank a liter of green tea for a year. Did nothing.
No, I know.
Tastes good, but.
And how did you eventually do it?
Sorry?
How did you eventually get to the point where you're at? You changed your diet. I know you changed-
Ketogenic diet.
Ketogenic diet, that's right. You know, eating healthy, lean proteins, good fats, kind of green, eat what the earth gave us, not what people have touched so much. And then this is kind of, and I do this a lot, is I get out there and I tell people this is bad. Like butylated hydroxytoluene is banned in every country in the world except for Canada and the States.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a petroleum-based byproduct. It's in Centrum, it's in 1-a-day, it's in your crackers in your cupboard. Like it's all over our food supply and all over our industry. And it's terrible. It's petroleum-based, it stores in our fat cells, it accumulates throughout our life, and it's conclusively linked to stomach cancer, liver cancer. It's listed carcinogenic by Health Canada.
Why is Health Canada not getting after it?
Yeah, I get to that in a second, because I kind of walked that ladder a little bit. And it's terrible. Like
What do
it's
they use it for?
absolutely ludicrous. It's a preservative, so it stops fats from becoming oxidized.
I see.
Much like vitamin E would, but I guess vitamin E is too expensive for them. I don't know what their logic is. You know. And then food
Bring it to
colorings.
market fresh, that'd be better, yes.
And not only this is in Materna. This is in the #1 prenatal vitamin. This is in Flintstones. This is in our children's multivitamin. This is criminal. FD&C yellow, which has been shown to cause adrenal tumors. It's just terrible, terrible, terrible stuff, and completely unregulated. Hydrolyzed protein, they get around putting MSG, which is their kind of cytatory neurotoxin. Sodium benzoate, Coca-Cola was sued. They make Snapple. They were putting sodium benzoate in there as a mold inhibitor, and in the presence of vitamin C, which obviously is in a multivitamin, converted to benzene, Coca-Cola settled out of court and said, don't say it. We're not admitting liability, we're just going to pay you off. So what? It's in both the hydrogenated soybean oil, all of this stuff. So like not only reading the ingredient list, what's in the multivitamin or whatever product, but reading the non-medicinal ingredient list, which is probably as much of this crap as there is a vitamin, any one of the vitamins in a multivitamin. So back in the day, when I was under Brenda, who had money to protect me and take care of lawyers in case I got sued, that's when I kind of put this all together, right? And then, you know, I contacted the company straight up and asked them why. And after much rigmarole, if Pfizer could sue me and shut me down, I wouldn't even have a chance to fight. It's not about if I'm right or wrong. It's they would crush me under legal fees. I would be decimated. So, you know, finally what they got back to me, they said it was within Health Canada's acceptable limits. So Health Canada has acceptable limits in these carcinogens, and I called Health Canada, and they just never got back to me. They didn't care what I thought, but you know they have acceptable limits of known carcinogens, and it's acceptable to put them in a multivitamin, or your prenatal vitamin, or your child's Flintstone vitamin. Okay, enough rant on that. The second part of what I do is I look at medications, and I think this is kind of along those criminal lines too. You know, this isn't me making this stuff up. This is when I was in pharmacy and I was reading the CPS and compiling all this information. This is other brilliant people before me compiling this information. Drugs deplete nutrients. So if you're on a medication, you should be aware of it. And it's not that the drug is bad. It's that us not communicating that to the people who are being prescribed that drug. We're not telling you, you know, one of the more known ones, statin drugs, cholesterol-lowering medications deplete something called coenzyme Q10 in the body. Not a shocker to most of you. But coenzyme Q10 helps your energy in your muscles start working better. So your energy in your muscles go down. What came out in the last 12 months in the news? People on statin drugs have a 40% increase in type 2 diabetes. Why is that? Because our muscles aren't burning the energy they previously had. Like, people don't see the consequence to You know, and I argued with pharmacists, and I argued with doctors. It's not that the drugs are bad. I'm okay with medication. If I'm in tachycardia, give me a beta blocker. Like, help me out, please. But we should manage the disease and teach people health. We're not doing that. We should give them medication to manage the disease and explain to them the consequence of taking that medication, and we're not doing that. And to me, that's criminal. So everything, you look at female hormones. We give a young lady a birth control pill. Great. Depletes magnesium, depletes B6. Both are cofactors in making serotonin, making her happy. Wondering why the incidence of depression is rampant among young women. You know, they're not told. And on and on and on. Proton pump inhibitors, like acid blockers, whether H2 blockers or proton pump inhibitors, deplete B12. B12 causes homocysteine to go up, heart disease, dementia, fatigue, on and on and on, right? We should be telling people, if you're going to take this medication, this is what's depleting it, and leaving it up to the individual if they want to supplement or not. At least it's on them. Okay, so yeah, many of the side effects, like we hear all the time, right? People are on one medication, 3 months later they go to their doctor and say, oh, my legs are killing me, so they're on another medication, and the cruel irony was, like, we never fixed anything. Sorry, Darlene, I keep pointing at you, but just for the affirming nod, right?
You
Like,
keep pointing at me.
like we knew everybody by name, right? Every 30 days they're freaking coming and filling their scripts. Like, we're not fixing anybody for the billions and billions and billions of dollars we're putting into our disease management system. We're not fixing anybody. So
You're fixing one thing.
they're fixing pocketbooks of Pfizer so they can buy Monsanto, and on and on and on. That's exactly what's happening, right? They control your food. They can make you sick. They make you sick. They can sell you drugs. They don't want you dead. They don't want anybody dead. They don't make money on dead people. They make money on, you know, everybody says that. Oh, our life expectancy has increased. You know, it used to be this, now it's this. Oh yeah, but the quality of life has decreased, and that's kind of, you know, what's going on.
That's for now, because of people that are living so long, or the people that had grown up in the time before they had any of these synthetics.
Exactly.
All natural.
Before 1935, there was no such thing as
No.
artificial fertilizers. It was all organic. So
Yeah.
all those people are living to be 100. Come back in about 50 years, see how many people today will be 100.
Absolutely. They say my child's life expectancy is going to be less than my life
That's correct.
expectancy. They'll probably keep them alive through some artificial whatever.
Bionics.
You know? Yeah, bionics.
Existing.
Yeah, they'll offset. It's exactly it, yeah. Sorry. Ranting takes a lot of effort. So B12, you know, even Health Canada says a third of people currently in nursing homes wouldn't have to be there if they had sufficient B12. Really? Give them their B12, like it's a penny a day. Seriously, like, but we don't, right? So a lot of medications deplete B12, and it causes tingly fingers, it causes fatigue, it increases homocysteine, which causes dementia and heart disease. It is and it's only found in red meat. And who eats the least amount of red meat? Seniors. So we're seeing a lot of medications starting to affect B12, and we're seeing it clinically now. It's the only vitamin doctors actually check on requisition for a reason. If it's low, it will mess you up. And we're seeing it, I saw 3 today, as a matter of fact, low. So when you're at the doctor's office, they don't check a lot of your vitamins, but they can definitely check your B12, and I highly suggest it. Magnesium, the #2 selling product in my store, actually. All the women in the room need 300 milligrams a day minimum. All the men, 400 milligrams. To get that, the government says you need to eat 9 to 11 servings of vegetables a day. Anybody want to raise their hand who ate 11 servings of vegetables today?
A few,
Right,
not 11.
four.
Like
Yeah,
chocolate,
that's-
chocolate, there's magnesium in chocolate, right?
Yeah, there's magnesium in chocolate. That's
Dark chocolate, it's okay.
There we go, you're right. But, you know, again, if our government's saying you need minimum this, you know, optimal is usually higher than minimum.
Twice,
So again, proton pump inhibitors, you know, acid blockers deplete magnesium. Firstly, nobody's getting it. Then a whole crap load of medications interrupted. It's involved in everything. We give people magnesium and vitamin D are the #1, 2, and I'll get to vitamin D in a second. Everybody starts feeling better. They're sleeping better, they're calmer, relaxes your muscles. It's involved in 350 enzymes. It is, so what I want to kind of everybody to leave with today is everybody comes to my store, goes to a pharmacy or a doctor, and asks to treat a symptom. You know what? Give your body what it's lacking. There's only a X number of things that make everything in your body work and function. Without them, you don't work or function very well. So magnesium's huge, vitamin D is absolutely huge. A multi's not a bad idea. And then all of a sudden, the symptoms start to go away. Whereas if you come to me and say, oh, I'm inflamed here, try some curcumin, try some of this, try some of that, you know, well, I don't mind if you do that. You make a lot of money, but I'm not a drug company, and that's not my philosophy. Always fill deficiencies first, whether they're drug-induced or nutritional or through your diet.
The daily recommended dosage that comes from the federal government?
RDIs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Has
basically,
that been updated since like
No.
previous work?
well, vitamin C was updated. It was, 5 years ago, it was 60 milligrams of vitamin C, so you wouldn't get scurvy.
Yeah.
So here's scurvy, here's 60 milligrams of vitamin C, like right there, you're not gonna get
I
scurvy.
know the original recommended daily dosage was the amount required to keep a soldier in the field,
Yeah,
just the minimum
that's pretty
amount.
much, that's
Yeah.
pretty much back then is the last we actually stopped really looking at what nutrients do.
That was minimum amount.
Yeah.
It wasn't the optimum amount, it
No.
was minimum.
No, and now they've upped it to 90 milligrams because they were actually seeing pre-scurvy-like conditions, right? Arterial, the collagen that helped our arteries heal wasn't healing properly. So now they said, oh, well, 50% increase. Went from 60 to 90. 90 milligrams is still pretty lame.
You've got to
So-
watch those percentages, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Iodine, iodine, they put iodine in years ago because everybody was having goiter or thyroid. They put it in the salt, now I hear Sifto's taking it out, de-iodine
Yeah.
salt, like,
Yeah.
and,
And now, arguably more so than ever, people need iodine.
mhm.
You know, 150 micrograms, which is the recommended intake on iodine, was what the government put in salt. They tell you not to eat salt, the salt company's taking it out. But in light of, you know, even what happened, Fukushima, all these nuclear reactors, the hundreds of nuclear bombs that have ever went off, that shit doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still circulating our globe, it's still affecting our thyroid. And without iodine, our thyroid gland will get goiter, enlargement, but it also, you know, it helps to kick toxins out of it. If Darlington nuclear plant blew up tomorrow, the government of Canada would knock on your door and make you take iodoral, which is iodine. They would force you to take it to save your thyroid gland. But it also kicks chlorine, fluoride, bromine, all of which are cancer-causing and freaking everywhere. Bromine's in everything, chlorine's in your water, fluoride's in everything. Those three things are toxic, and everybody has them. The one that kicks them all out of your body, iodine, nobody has them. So iodine's, yeah, it's a big one.
So what's your opinion on the putting in, lye in the water, in the drinking water now?
Yeah, the argument is with lead is better. Like, that's what they're doing. They're trying to bind and precipitate out the lead that's in all the piping, so.
Well, they were saying that the people that didn't take their lead pipes out of their houses, they didn't want them to get the lead exposure. Then they were saying, well, the solder in your pipes, but when you put a pipe together and you solder the outside, it's not touching the water, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
So-
I think what the city knows and what they're telling us are probably two different things. I think some of the old pipes that nobody's talking about probably still lead lined and they know it, right?
Michigan.
So they're putting sodium hydroxide in there or whatever to kind of precipitate it out so it doesn't stay in the solution. But it's always lesser of evils, and I hate to be, like, I don't want to be a pessimist, but I'm a realist, right? Like, you know, what we've done to our earth, what we've done to our water, you know, like, how do you avoid lead and mercury? They find PCBs in polar bears. PCBs were banned in the 70s. They're still finding them. Like, you know, we just give your body what it needs to heal. It's an amazing machine. I've seen crazy, nothing less than miraculous when you're giving your body what it actually needs to heal and be well.
How about kelp?
Kelp, yeah. But kelp, again, sits in the ocean and sucks up whatever's around it, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's
our ocean has a bunch of
All
stuff,
depends
so.
where it comes from.
The good thing about supplements is, you know, they're required to look at that, right? They're required to look at cadmium and arsenic and mercury content in these products. Even fish oil, the acceptable limit of fish and tuna in pregnancy in Canada is 0. Every tuna in the world is so toxic, the government says, if you're pregnant, don't eat it. But if you were to make a fish oil supplement from a tuna, then you'd be legally required to look for mercury and cadmium and lead and PCBs. Yeah, so,
That Tony Robbins, he was saying that he had a blood test and they found that he was just toxic with mercury. He wondered why he was sweating all the time and he had so much energy. How do they detoxify a person from the mercury? Like, how do
well,
you, what,
there's two ways. We do intravenous, what's called EDTA, which is a chelating agent. It
Chelating,
just
yeah.
goes in the body, it's shaped like a claw, and it grabs onto whatever mineral it fits in its little socket, and it holds it, and then you can excrete it.
Mhm.
Dr. Lai, one of the cardiologists, had done it for years. And then the college physicians and surgeons said, nope. Took it away from them. You have success, whatever I don't care what your results are, you're banned. You're no longer allowed to do it. So that was revoked. We used to have one called DMSA, dimercaptosuccinic acid, oral chelating, worked awesome. But again, as of December 2017, has gone prescription only. But even if you get a prescription for it, nobody can fill it. So basically, it's the government's way of taking it away from you. So,
So how else can you chelate? How else can you
chelating,
chelate?
You know, the body, like I said, you know, I've seen stuff. I've seen people terminal. I've seen all sorts of crazy, and people just swing it around. You know, by eating well, by giving yourself lots of greens. Chlorella can take out heavy metals, vitamin C, increasing glutathione in your body. Like, there's ways we can stop putting the challenge on the body by stop exposing yourself to whatever toxins, and then give the body nutrients to process and heal. It's like a plant. You can have a dead plant if it's got one green leaf and give it some water and some nutrients, and all of a sudden, it's the same as us.
How good are those nutrients? I mean, all the greens you're supposed to eat,
Yeah.
the sprays, and there's all kinds of junk in it.
You know, organic certification, which again, I don't want to, but, you know, to get certified organic food in Canada, there's a ton of hoops, and, you know, they have to prove it's clean, which is weird. If you want to sell shit, you should be able to prove that's okay. You know, like, it seems backwards to me, but at least organic is grown in soil, it's not grown hydroponically, they have to be pesticide and non-GMO, pesticide-free for at least 4 years on the fields. Like,
Is that available in Pennsylvania?
yeah, I get mine at Safeway. I'm sure you shop around. I see your carts on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, I don't shop organic though.
Oh, I do.
Can verify that it's organic.
Health Canada, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, actually, it's hard. Like, it's really, really, really hard to get certified organic. So it is all certified in
But I
Canada.
mean, who can prove that it is organic? This is what I'm getting.
Well, they inspect the fields and they do soil sample to make sure there was no pesticides or fungus or human feces. It's not acceptable. So they actually do the soil samples and have to prove, and they can detect even parts per million. That's why Nestle's paying those pork companies to sit off their fields for 3 years. It takes that long for the
But
soil.
what field are they doing?
Well, it depends. Like, even importers from Mexico and wherever else in the world that they're bringing organic produce from are required to prove. Like, they have to
Okay.
prove.
I don't think you can trust Mexico.
The other option is, you know, go to local, like, right? This time of year, the greenhouses are up and running, you can get the sprouts, you can get, like, buy local, buy from people, grow a garden. I got a lot of people buying those towers now with the lights, and they're just, you know, sell it all year round, right? You just go to your kitchen, pick off a, you know, but trying to eat clean, however that be. But I know in Thunder Bay, it's not always easy to get organic, but it's going to become more marketable because these companies are seeing where you're spending your dollars, right? So spend your dollars and then send some message up. You're not going to hurt them. I think I'm hurting them. They don't give a shit what I say. I don't care how many letters I write them. But when I go to the grocery store and drop my $5, they're like, hey, I want that $5. You know, that's how we communicate with them. Okay, so coenzyme Q10, huge, right? Like I said, people come all the time. I've seen people on canes, myalgia, muscle pain, aching. And we give them CoQ10 when they're on a medication depleting it. All of a sudden the muscles have energy, the brain has energy. It's been shown to cause, we're using 1200 in Parkinson's, so neurodegeneration, heart benefits, muscle benefits. Like I said, 40% increase on type 2 diabetes. You know, when the drug comes to market, we study the drug. And then we put it out in the community and we do what's called polypharmacy. You're on an antihypertensive, high blood pressure medication, cholesterol medication, beta blocker. That's never been studied. We're all guinea pigs to that. But if they're all depleting the same nutrients, coenzyme Q10 can cause congestive heart failure. It can cause, like I said, diabetes, dementia, Parkinson's. Like, that's what we didn't expect.
What's the status advisable for that?
2 milligrams per kilogram body mass. So everybody's a little different based on your weight. So, good math.
Yeah, right.
Usually 200 milligrams.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're using 200 now in children with migraines, so it's safe. Like, it's absolutely safe. It's been studied for children. We're using 1200 in, like I said, Parkinson's. So there's a huge safety margin. It's just you don't have to over-supplement because it's going to cost you money. Vitamin D, I often think I should wear this shirt saying I'm the vitamin D poster child. I think I put more people on vitamin D in Thunder Bay than anybody. I'm adamant about it. It is adamantly, everybody, all of you, no exception, have to take vitamin D. Have to. And if you don't believe me, go to your doctor, get your vitamin D levels checked. If I'm wrong, come and see me if you're not supplementing, and I'll buy you a vitamin D. You have to take vitamin D. Well, I'll get to that in a sec. Everybody's a little different, and it depends on, so many variables in all of this, and I don't like, because everybody's an individual, right? We treat the person. Basically, we live in Thunder Bay. You can stand naked right now. Believe it or not, it's sunny today, but you're not making a lot of vitamin D. In July and August we do, but we're inside. We cover up, we wear sunscreen, so we're not. I was as naked as legally allowed last year. I take between 15 and 20,000 units of vitamin D a day. I had my levels checked in the middle of August, and mine was in the middle of range. So, you'd be surprised how much it takes. For hundreds of thousands of years, our species walked around naked in warm climates. And we were making 20,000 units every hour. You go naked in the sun in July, you make 20,000 units. 160,000 a day. And we talk about like 1,000 IU as being some radical number. So basically everybody's low, and a lot of medications do affect vitamin D as well. The government says, okay, so you need to take between 400 and 800 IU a day is what the RDI is. Anybody over the age of 50 must supplement 1,000 units a day. To get 1,000 units through your diet, you have to drink 3 liters of milk every day. Yeah. That's insane. When Darlene was in pharmacy back in the day, we used to have 10,000 IU per pill. You ever remember any toxicity? Never. Not one reported case of toxicity, not one reported case of any kind of overdosing on it. You go to Duluth, you can still buy 10,000 IU per pill. But in Canada, a study came out in women who had the highest amount of vitamin D had a 70% reduction in all types of maternal cancer. The next day, our government, 1,000 IU, we're all restricted. No more 10,000s on the market. We're all restricted down to 1,000 IU per dose. And yeah, then they stopped paying for you. They used to pay for your vitamin D blood work. You could go to your doctor and they'd be like, yeah, sure, it's covered. No, it's not covered. It's going to cost you $35 to run that test. You can buy a 2-year supply of the best vitamin D for $35. So don't waste your time. Just assume deficiency and just take it.
Not to mention particulates more in the air that kind of filter the sun out easier.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Absolutely true. Okay, so what it does, what we knew bones, right? We all knew vitamin D, calcium, bones, yep. But then we came along saying neuromuscular effects, so actually working on the muscles, so for strengthening muscle, for less falls and trips. And then the immunological effects. They looked at people at the equator, very, very low incidence of MS, multiple sclerosis. They went north and south, they said, holy shit, like Thunder Bay, lots of people with MS. They hit the Inuit culture up in northern Canada, no MS. They're like, huh. So they look at what's the correlation between Inuit and Southern, and they saw vitamin D, right? They eat organ meats, they eat blubber, they have a lot of vitamin D in their diet, and in the equator, they're making vitamin D through sun. And so they started humming and hawing and looking, and that's what they saw. They saw low vitamin D was linked to autoimmune diseases, including MS, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and I think the list is getting longer by the day. Cardiovascular effects, it decreases hypertension, it decreases type 2 diabetes, and all this stuff coming out. And then cancer, there's 11 cancers associated directly with low vitamin D. In Canada, we're allowed to say prostate, breast, and colorectal cancer. So, yep, take your vitamin D. Okay, so this is just kind of illustrating deficiency, and so it's checked during the seasons, less than 80, 97% deficiency rate, which is just epidemic. This is the reduction in colds and flus, so our immune system. And it's also been shown to be neuroactive for depression, seasonal affective depression. There's a lot going on with vitamin D right now. But at 2,000 IU per day, which is low, there was an 85% reduction in colds and flus in the treated group versus placebo. To put that in perspective, a flu vaccine, the best flu vaccine ever developed, I suppose, because every year they screw it up. It was 15%. When a drug comes to market, they need to do what's called an NNT, or how many people do we need to give this drug to for one person to benefit? And so on a vaccine, it's called an NNV, number needed to vaccinate. It's 1 in 9 people will have a reduction in flu. With vitamin D, it's 1 in 1.5. So 6 times more effective at reducing influenza infection than a flu vaccine. Again, why is our government buying 30 billion, flu vaccines every year to give us all a flu vaccine when it would be a nickel a day to give us all vitamin D and prevent cancer and prevent depression and prevent hypertension and diabetes and MS and what?
I also found that quite helpful is vitamin A.
A?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have quite a bit of sinus problems, and I started taking the vitamin A. No more clogged nose,
Yeah.
no more sinus.
One of the doctors I work with is actually checking her patients on vitamin A and seeing it low, right? Organ meats. Vitamin D and vitamin A came together in organ meats, right?
Yeah.
Who's eating organ meats? When's the last time anybody ate an organ meat? Yeah, a little bit, right? Like you have a piece of liver once in a while or something. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, organ meats, that's what we used to do, right? We used to force cod liver oil down children's throats and give them organ and make them eat their liver, right? Like we used to.
Tim, you know where you can get, I buy liver, but I hate buying liver in the sense that I would prefer to buy it organically. We buy all our meat from Peter Brink and Shady Acres, I call it Shady Acres. But he's not allowed to sell me liver. How do I buy organ meat that is organic?
Yeah, that's tough, eh? Like it's a weird, eh? It's another thing how our kind of government keeps our food out of our hands, right? Like,
Yeah.
I told the guy, I'll buy your cow, keep it at your field, I'll come and slaughter it. Like,
I'll
I got
buy
no
one
problem.
with you.
And he's like, no, can't do it, right? All through the arbitor, no, you can't do it, you can't.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me? I tell people when they're buying either bones for bone broth or organ meats, calf.
Yeah.
So they're making veal anyway. Get a calf's liver. It hasn't lived that long. The liver's nice and clean. Our liver gets dirty
Okay.
from life, from putting all our hormones and all our crap that we're eating through it. So if you're gonna, I don't know how to get organic, but I can definitely advise
Half liver, thank you, because that's bugged me for ages.
Yeah, calf.
There's only one of us eating that, mine. But the other one goes,
Doesn't like it.
my mother made me eat that.
I'm a
It's
fan.
horrible. Yeah.
All right, this is directly stolen from Health Canada's website. It's a little dated, actually. They've actually upped it a little bit. I just noticed. So 1,000 units, a little point here, vitamin D. 1,000 units of vitamin D is what the government says is safe at birth. So a newborn baby can have 1,000 IU, and yet if you're over 50, you have to take 1,000 IU. Gives you kind of some perspective on how safe it is. Like, it's extremely safe. They've upped it, this is where they've upped it. From 7 to 12 months is 1,500 units. They've actually upped that to 2,000. So 2,000 units of vitamin D is safe in a 6-month-old baby. After the age of 9, they go to 4,000. But again, like when we do the blood work, the range is 75 to 250. 4,000 will get you to 90. For every 1,000 you add, you go up 10 points in the blood work. So kind of gauge it like that. You don't just keep going up and up and up and up and up. You just kind of like up a little bit, hover, add 1,000, up a little bit more. So that kind of illustrates what the government says is safe, 4,000. Usually I tell every adult at least 4,000 units a day. So in conclusion, after all my crazy ranting, and hopefully nobody leaves here with a headache, really what we're doing is stupid, right? We're not thinking. We're screwing up our land, we're screwing up our food, we're eating that food, we're taking medications like that deplete stuff. We're not thinking, we're not educating, and that's kind of what I want to stress is like when you're on a medication or you don't like certain foods and you're not eating certain foods, look at it, look what's lacking, put it back. I don't know what else to stress there. You know, talk to somebody who knows, right? Like there's people who sell it, and everybody judges me because I sell supplements. I have a incentive to promote it. No, anybody who knows me, I don't do it well. I talk people out of buying stuff every single day. You know, start simple, put back what the body needs, see how it responds. Let's go from there, and we can work towards getting you to better health. It's not just leave my place with 20 bottles and good luck to you. So that's all what I needed so nobody could sue me. That's my contact information. If anybody has questions about anything, supplement or medication, I'll do my best.
What B17, Latral?
Late trial, make the lane. It's illegal. It's not legal in Canada because cyanide, which is part of amygdalin or Latral, it's in apricot seeds, apple seeds. You know, it's in almonds. Like it's naturally found, and it in clinical studies had been shown to adjust the pH of the cell to kind of prevent tumor growth. But a cell's pH goes from 7.35 to 7.45. Either side of that, you're dead. So, you know, like in Mexico and some of those alternative clinics, they use it, you know, under doctor's supervision. It has value. But people die, you know, taking apricot bits and doing what they do, crushing them up, eating them. You know, there's so many more cool things. And I'll get back to, you know, ketogenic diet for a second. That's what we're doing. You know, people come in undergoing cancer therapies. We support their immune system, give them vitamin D, and then we put them on a ketogenic diet. A tumor needs glucose. A tumor needs sugar. A tumor is just your cell that's just gone rogue. It's just not dying. So one cell becomes 2 and 4 and 16, eventually. So how do you stop that? You cut it? Not a bad idea sometimes. Do you try to radiate it and poison it? Or do you just starve it? And starving it. You know, people come to us, we say no bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, corn, cereal, sugar, or fruit. No bananas, no fruit, none. 100,000 years, your people never saw bananas. Don't eat them, they're little toxic candy bombs. You know, you need to eat lean proteins to heal the body, to give your body what it needs to structure. You need to eat lean, nice clean fats and oils, and not just, you know, bacon. You know, you gotta eat nuts and seeds, and avocados, and olive oil, and almond oil, and grapeseed oil, like lots of different types of fat. Your body loves fat and needs fat. And you need to eat, so lean, green, and clean, lots of green. Keep the glucose down. If you have no insulin elevation throughout the day, a tumor cannot survive. All the rest of your little happy cells will live on ketones very, 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 very healthfully. But cutting out carbs, it's the only way science has ever found to extend longevity. We're using it now in dementia, we're using it in cancer therapies. Like, I can't promote that ketogenic type diet enough. You know, we're seeing profound results from it.
What's your opinion on saturated fats?
Moderation, you know, nature gave us saturated fats, right? You have them.
Okay, I had the understanding from another source that some saturated fats have the ability to help pull out toxins easier in the body. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
No. Like, I think saturated fats are part of what I don't want to get into religious debates with anybody, but, you know, I think genetically we've evolved somehow to based on what we've eaten over millennia. So saturated fats were part of it, right? But we're lazy. I tell people that. Like, our species is pretty lazy. You know, we built villages, we hung out together. Women, thank you, because you did most of the work probably. You went out and got the berries and all the eggs, and you know, 90% of what we lived on were like squirrels that ran through. You eat it, you go fishing. You know, we lived on small game, and then we did kill. You know, we killed what came in, we killed what was around, and we ate some saturated fat. But majority of what we ate probably was kind of greens and nuts and seeds and berries and squirrels and fish. You know, all of the other stuff was probably, and that's probably what it should be in your diet, majority.
The recommendation is really low, like the Canada Food Guide,
Yeah.
like 20 grams a day. I eat way more than
Of fat?
of saturated fat.
Of saturated fat, yeah.
So, you know, one tablespoon of coconut oil and you're done for the day.
Yeah, and there's different types of saturated fat. You know, like if you feed a hog GMO corn and coop it up so it's stressed all its life, its fat is way different than, you know, in cows that are grass fed, they make a fat called CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. And it was actually showing, they were looking at red meat and saying, well, how can people who eat red meat get more cancer? And they looked at it and they found in grass-fed animals, they make CLA. And in studies, it was actually stopping cancer progression. And in corn-fed cows, which most of our cows are grain-fed, they don't make CLA. So even saturated fat can be totally different based on how we treat the animal. The stress, you cage an animal up and it's just flooded with hormones like dopamine and epinephrine all the time. It's stored in your fat. Then you used to come along and fry it up on your barbecue and eat it. You know, you're top of the food chain, everything goes up. So, you know, treating animals with respect, that's, you know, makes it work different.
I think a lot of people that talk to me have problems recognizing the difference between saturated fats and hydrogenated
Right.
fats and margarine and stuff, so I don't know. if
You know
you'd
the
like to-
study, the Stanford bastards who friggin' lied about fat
Yeah.
and then promoting the high carb diet, right? That's
Yeah.
what happened. And then margarine came along, not after that, in the late 70s and stuff. Like, we were lied to, flat out. It came out a few years ago in the press and flat out lied to. They said fats are bad, get away from fats, and then it just led to a high carb craze, and it was a promoting agenda. Really, the only agenda we should be promoting is you look at traditional culture, Papua New Guinea, all these people who run around the earth think like we did for hundreds of thousands of years. You know what? They don't have cancer, they don't have heart disease, they don't have dementia, they don't have all of the shit that we're dying from. It's a very Western thing, and it's what we're doing, right?
My dad spent like 4 years in a Japanese camp, and when he came out, because of malnutrition, his whole body was itchy all over. And the doctor looked at him, tested him, said, you have a calcium deficiency. But in order for him to get back to the calcium he needed, he could not consume it. He had to get it injected. So it was intravenous injections of that particular nutrient. But other people have had similar difficulties where instead of trying to consume it and get only a portion of that through the digestive system, they actually get their vitamins injected into their system directly. And there was a case in New Zealand where the father was suffering from a severe pneumonia, congestion, and the doctor gave him everything they had, and they said, well, there's nothing more we can do. So the son said, you have to inject him with vitamin C, make a vitamin C dosage injected. And they said, we will do that. So he went to a lawyer, brought the lawyer said, you do it or we will sue you. So they did it. Within 1 month, his father walked out of that hospital.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's because he injected it,
Yeah.
it went directly into the system.
Yeah, and there's a time and a place we do inject it. We still do inject B12, we still do inject iron when it's hemoglobin's under 80. Like, there's time and a place that's appropriate. The problem with it is it is stressed in and of itself on the body, right? You're putting 100% bioavailable. You know, when I eat calcium, calcium's not absorbed as calcium. Calcium is grabbed by protein in our intestine and transported into the body and retained and dispersed. So when you're injecting stuff, you're not doing that, right? So you're flooding the body with. So there's good and bad to it. Obviously, to replete quickly, yeah, it's a great idea. But long-term use of injectables, I frown upon it. People come to me and get injected B12, just like, right? The red blood cells go whirr, right back to normal, everything's good, but then within 30 days, they crash. So all the red blood cells go whirr, back to like microcytic anemia, and then whirr, whirr, whirr,
So
whirr.
how do you take B12 and how much?
I usually eat sublingual, so
Yeah.
under your tongue can bypass your stomach and your liver, and it'll just go directly into the blood. How much is a question? Like, again, back to bioavailability, like this is what freaks people out. 1,000 micrograms in the tablet, and I've had doctors phone me and say, what are you giving people 1,000 micrograms of B12 for? Right? Because you only need 2.5 micrograms, and you're giving them 1,000, and it seems radical. 1% absorbed. Out of that 1,000, only 1% goes into your blood. So you're only getting 10. 10 is only 4 times more, 2.5. So we can keep the level up. But it depends on the person. Medications, we up it a little bit. Yeah, if they're low in the blood work, we get it up quickly. Because,
And how much do you weigh?
yeah, the blood work just got messed up. It used to be 198 to 615 was the range. But the only time we check people are people who we think are low, right? So we just check a bunch of low people. All you high people who are taking B12, we don't check you. And then they take the average of what they've checked, and that becomes the new normal. So the bottom just went from 198 to 138. I'm like, no. If your B12's under 300, you take B12. Trust me, you don't look at numbers and normals. Normals are just a bunch of sick people. So,
Okay, another question, then I'll stop. Statins. Do you think people should be taking statins for cholesterol or not? And I know.
I can say it. I'll
You
say
could-
it.
okay,
I don't work
say
in
it.
pharmacy, I'm not doing it
Okay.
wrong. Yes, I think people should. No tomatoes. You know, I think there's a time and a place. I think the drugs are appropriately prescribed on occasion. I've had people who are at high risk of heart disease who we check other factors like HSCRP or inflammation in the arteries is elevated, triglycerides are off the chart, they lived a shitty little lifestyle, now they want to get better, their total cholesterol's over 8, their ratio's over 5, like it's just a mess. Yeah, go on a statin. Go on a statin for 3 to 6 months. Let's get that picture a lot better, and then get the hell off the statin. And we'll maintain that better. You know, drugs are designed to do that. Drugs are designed to get control of a bad situation. Drugs are not designed to be 30 years later, I'm still taking my Lipitor. What? It doesn't take 30 years to get your cholesterol down. If it's under 5.2, your ratio's under 3, your LDL's under 3, your HSCRP's low, get off the drug. Manage it through your diet, through your lifestyle, move your ass. Drugs don't increase good cholesterol. They don't increase HDL. They lower LDL. They make the ratio better, but in order to make the good cholesterol better, you need to move. Exercise increases HDL, so it's equally as effective.
Your opinion on parasiting, deparasiting?
Yeah.
How often,
Well,
what
every
kind
culture
of,
on Earth has done that, right? We live in a very aseptic, you know, kind of, like our little bubble that we live in North America is very sterile. You know, that's why when we go to Mexico and drink some water, it doesn't turn out so good for us, but they're drinking their water just fine. Like we live almost too sterile, and that's kind of where probiotics come into the mix. We need to add more bacteria, not kill them all. But parasites do happen for sure. Do you need to purge them? You know, I don't know. Every culture on Earth does it. They eat bitters in the spring, especially in the spring. They'll eat some bitters, like some wormwood or vermouth or something, and then they'll have like just kill it off. And I argue, you know, if you're eating well and taking a probiotic occasionally and putting good bacteria in there, you know, keep the good ahead of the bad, and then you shouldn't be symptomatic. So I don't like telling everybody just go out and drink vermouth and just purge. You know, you can do it if you want.
What did you tell us about the keto diet?
What do I
You
think about it?
mentioned about the diet earlier.
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I think it's a good choice. I think it's the way people probably have adapted to eat. I think it's
That fits in with what you said about keeping carbs low.
Yeah, keep your carb low. The only way science has ever discovered to extend lifespan, whether it's a flea, a fruit fly, a bat, a monkey, whatever, is caloric restriction or insulin restriction. Sugar, energy in our cells, glucose is like high octane energy, right? And that energy is what's hurting us. It's damaging our DNA, it's accelerating our aging. It has a function, it gets you moving your ass when the bear's behind you. But, you know, your body can also burn fat, which is like a big wet log on a fire. So now all of a sudden, it's like switching from a funny car to a diesel engine. Why do you think trains and transports run on diesel? Because their engines will last them, 600,000 kilometers. Like, because fats are burned cooler and it's not so damaging. So that ketogenic diet, I'm a huge advocate of it. I think lean proteins, good oils and fats, lots of greens and colors in your diet, it's kind of the way it's meant to be, I think. There's no essential carbohydrates. Your body does not require glucose. There's none. Fat, proteins, vitamins, minerals, water.
What about all the processed foods that are low carb and that people
Yeah.
are,
High chemical, low carb.
yeah, chemical low carb, but it's hard to convince people that you shouldn't be, oh, it says low carb, and I'm looking and I'm seeing the net carbs, they say,
Oh, yeah.
but they're
It's
not
so
real
bullshit.
food.
It's so bullshit. Like I said about that International Grocers Association,
Yeah.
hit Health Canada, right? You look at minute rice, total carbs, 80 grams, sugar, 0, fiber, 0. Well, oh, whoa, that doesn't add up. 0 plus 0 does not equal 80. They don't list starch. And starch in our intestine is broken to glucose, which is sugar. And it's not listed on any nutritional package. So it's malicious. But also I see a lot of other people, sucralose, acesulfame, potassium, low carb in it. Well, you know what? This is about health in the end too. Just having chemical soup is just because it's low carb, it's not healthy. So,
but we're the
I found
only,
there's more and more companies, like when it started, there was nothing, you had to just buy, veggies and
Yeah.
meat, eggs. And now there's a bunch of products everywhere, which is
It's
almost
future
overwhelming,
Yeah, they see the money, right? They
Yeah.
see the trends. They see
People
the
spend
market.
money on it.
They look on Facebook too. They're watching what people are doing, where the consumers, who's buying. They're tracking it, and now they're making it, right? Which is kind of nice in a way because
Kinda, but, when that ice cream came in, the Halo Top ice cream, not good.
so
Let's
that's what
give that others.
like ketogenic has somehow become bacon, butter, and bulletproof coffee. Like that's like it's what? That's not what we did for 100,000 years. It wasn't bacon, butter, and bulletproof coffee. I don't mind butter. I like bacon sometimes, but that's not health. You know, that's.
Tim, getting back to the probiotics, do you get it, could you get enough from kefir and yogurt?
Yeah.
So you're advocating taking a probiotic pill?
For most people, yes. You know, how we got them to begin with was with, oh, there's a carrot, pick it out of the ground, eat it, right? Like, we got probiotics from our environment.
Mhm.
But now, like, I don't know if I want to eat stuff from most of the soil, just because I know it's in the soil. So we're not doing a lot of that. We're using too much antibacterial everything. You know, we're very sterile.
Mhm.
And of all the cells you have, only 10% are human. You know, 90% of what you are is your microbiome. So 9 out of 10 of who you are is not you. So there's a symbiotic relationship, and science is being baffled by that. Like, they're talking to us, they're helping our immune system, our mood, our everything about us. Like I said, 9 out of 10 of you is not you, so you think it's not symbiotic? So taking a probiotic, you can do that. When you do kefir and yogurt, which I love, but you're getting one species of a milk probiotic and not a human probiotic, and which are multi-strained, which are derived from human culture, so they're part of us and they will grow in us. So not that you have to be on probiotics every day. It's like grass seed. You put them down, then you feed them, and let them grow. And then all the shit that we do will kill them, some of them, or the grass will start turning brown again. And you take some more seed, take another probiotic for a little while, feed them, let them grow. So you don't have to be on probiotics, but once in a while, I argue in our world that we live in, it's not a bad idea to put the seed down once in a while.
Does that help you with the enzymes also?
It does, yeah, it does. And it's weird, because like...
I know as you age, your enzyme efficiency goes down and down and down, so even the foods that you eat, whether it be vitamins or anything else, are not being absorbed properly.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And eating more raw food that has enzymes in it, right? We also...
Live food.
Yeah, live food, yeah. Sorry,
I got a question.
Sure.
There's a doctor that writes in the Tuesday paper, called Different Joe, Ken Walker. He promotes a particular vitamin C product. What's your impression about that?
Yeah, no, it's true. Like when I graduated, I learned nothing about health, believe it or not. I knew a lot about food and drugs, but I didn't know anything about health. And then I read that. I read Linus Pauling, who that's his thing, you know, and he won a Nobel Prize twice, and he was in his 80s when he did this. And he did it for humanity. He studied vitamin C and how we don't have it, and you know, a couple of primates and fruit-eating bat, and everything else on Earth makes it. And he looked at that, and he came up, and it makes collagen, so it was helping heart disease, and it was helping cholesterol, and it was helping stop cancer from metastasizing, inhibiting collagenase. And I read his doctoral thesis, it's called The Unified Theory of Cardiovascular Disease. And after I read that, I was like, huh, I guess I was lied to for the last so years. You know, like, it just opened something up in my mind. And then when I went to, you know, in pharmacies and stuff, I was starting to read, you know, more and more and more and more. And I was like, wow, man, how come people don't know this? Like,
He must be doing something right, he's only 94.
yeah, he's very, I've met him numerous times, he's smart. And he's not doing it for money, man. The guy was a Harvard graduated physician, he's got tons of money. He's 94, wouldn't care. But he's doing it again because humanity needs to know that you need to, you know, why are you on statin drugs and all, like what he says, like he comes flat out and says it. And if it was wrong, you think he wouldn't be sued? He knows he's right, and everybody else knows he's right. And we see it every day, we see cholesterol. I had this guy come into me, he was 48 years old when I was at Jansen's. And his dad and his brother had died at 50 of massive MI at 50. He's 48, he sees the clock coming, right? So I was working with this cardiologist, and we ran what's called lipoprotein A and HSCRP and all these really, really fine-tuned cardiovascular markers. They were off the fucking charts, like off the charts. I get a little passionate. It's cathartic for me. It's like, so they were off the charts. He was going to die, bro. We put him on that. Before Gifford came out with his little formula, we put him on vitamin C, proline, lysine. His formula is actually lacking from Pauling, but we did Pauling with him. He's still around today. He still comes in by the same product. His numbers dropped by like 70% on his LPA levels. Yeah, still around. Yeah.
What's the name of this doctor?
Linus Pauling was the Pauling, P-A-U-L-I-N.
It's every Tuesday in the paper. Dr.
Okay.
Gifford.
Gifford is the guy who's marketing his science. But Pauling won the Nobel Prize twice, once for chemistry and once for
Okay,
vitamin C work.
Yeah.
Now, we're the only creatures on Earth that I can figure out that eat proteins and carbohydrates in the same meals.
Well, he's not Linus Pauling. Linus Pauling is pushing up daisies, but Gifford Jones
Yeah.
believes in
Yeah,
all his
yeah, it's another doctor who's
research.
who
Yeah.
kind of resurrected his work. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
no. Now,
Yeah,
Pauling
no,
was
you're-
way ahead of his time.
Way ahead. And dismissed as crazy.
I know.
And
yeah,
everybody
that-
wrote it off, right? And then you see, right after him, you saw this pharmaceutical machine start to roll, right? It's only been the last, we only started using drug therapy in the last, it's been a very short time in our history, and now look, it rules the world, owns our food.
Yeah.
Like, just
Isn't that all?
gone, yeah, it's just gone.
Monopoly.
Sorry, Al.
Can I ask about calcium? So is there a daily dose that's good, and does it have to be split, or can you take too much at one time where it won't be absorbed? So if you take 500 milligrams, it's good, but if you take 1,000, that other
That's true.
500 won't be absorbed?
That's true. 600 is kind of the upper limit on that for absorption overwhelming. 90% of the time, I don't sell calcium. I talk people out of buying calcium pills. Because I look at epidemiologically, right? I look at Asia, Africa, South America. You got 6 billion non-Western people on this rock with us, and they don't drink milk, and they don't get osteoporosis. The only people getting osteoporosis are us, Caucasian, European, North American, drinking milk, like, what? Vitamin D is lacking. You can't absorb, you think calcium until you're blue in the face and won't help your bones at all, until you have vitamin D to absorb it, and vitamin K most recently to get it out of your blood and put it in your bones. 1,000 milligrams is what you need a day. Google calcium-rich food. It is not hard to get 1,000 milligrams through diet. Occasionally people say, no, I'm never going to do it, so then we do supplement. But even without milk, you get orange juice, rice milk, almond milk, soy milk, and they're all 300 milligrams per cup. Green leafy vegetables, a handful of almond, serving of salmon once a week. Like, it's so easy to get that much calcium strictly through your diet.
The calcium alone is not sufficient, isn't it?
Magnesium is more, magnesium more so, arguably, because like I said, 11 servings of greens a day to get your magnesium. Okay, good luck. Nobody's doing that, but calcium we're kind of overdoing, and that's why you hear these reports of calcification in your arteries and soft tissue, and calcium's hurting people. Yeah, it's overdoing it.
So you're saying you would supplement it with vitamin D, or would you
Vitamin
take
D.
it with, if you were taking calcium, would you take it with magnesium or with vitamin D?
I usually
You're
tell
trying
people
to cut it
vitamin-
out. I hear you're
Yeah.
saying to cut it out, but if you
Yeah,
are-
well, vitamin D, everybody thinks they have to be together. They don't, right? Like, we make vitamin D in the sun. We don't have to take calcium at the same time. So they're not, you don't need it. But you need vitamin D, because vitamin D regulates how we absorb calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. So without vitamin D, you're not absorbing any calcium. So when you get your vitamin D up, now all of the calcium in your diet will be absorbed and used better in the body. And then up until 5 years ago, vitamin K was illegal. Even when people come in the pharmacy, they'd overdose on warfarin, right? Their INR would be 4, and they're gonna bleed out. We're like, what? I don't know how to get vitamin K. Like, nobody had vitamin K. A vitamin that's essential to your health was totally illegal, and even people in pharmacy couldn't get it to save people's lives. And then a study came out saying, wow, if you take vitamin K, it gets calcium out of your circulation and puts it into your bones. And it was decreasing calcification in arterial and heart disease, and all this stuff was coming out. Now the government allows vitamin K. And you can't see my slide there, but on that vitamin D, the Health Canada, there's no upper limit on vitamin K. You can take a bucket of vitamin K and drink it. You're not going to overclot. There's no toxicity. It's never been established. So why was it illegal, for one thing? And then when the studies came out, they told women 1,500 milligrams of calcium a day, 400 IU of vitamin D a day. Then on autopsies, they looked at their arteries. They were just rocks. They were calcified. They had calcium all throughout their body. They were like, uh-oh. So now the government said, well, no longer 1,500, they backed it to 1,000. Vitamin D went up, and now vitamin K to offset that calcification. So be very careful with calcium. It's not that we don't need it, it's very important. It's just it's easy to get too much and get too heavy because you're lacking the magnesium, the vitamin D, and the vitamin K in the diet.
All right.
Isn't it that all vitamins are like a synergistic effect where one promotes the other? So you can't just do one, be like putting gas in the car but no oil.
To some degree, all enzymes require multiples. So that's how they're synergistic. Like to take tryptophan from turkey and make serotonin and make you happy, you need B6, magnesium, zinc. Without all these rungs and all these ladders, right? The ladder, you don't go up the ladder, right? So it's not that they're all working together, but they're all they're all doing what they do. Yeah.
I, just from some of the research I've done, I've gotten the impression that pasteurizing milk is actually detrimental to your health if you ingest it after it's been heated over a certain temperature.
There's some degree of truth. You know, we did that back in the day when Listeria was killing us, because some dude was there in a wooden bucket milking his cow. Like, come on, we shouldn't even have to pasteurize milk anymore. We have aseptic technique, we have stainless steel. But when you're heating fats up and denaturing the enzymes, you know, killing all the live part of the milk, yeah, I
So
don't
it's
think
not
it's
a
healthy.
real, I also, in that research, read that it could actually pacify the body and leach calcium from the bones rather than giving you calcium.
Yeah, they find countries that drink milk actually have a higher degree of osteoporosis than countries that don't drink milk, so some truth to that.
Just for
What?
a fact, Tim, they've taken milk off of the Canada Food Guideline now.
Getting off there, yeah. Right now, they're, in the next 2 years, they're gonna totally formulate the Canada Food Guide, which is, they're getting lobbied hard right now. They're kind of humming and hawing about that. You know, so the grain industry and the milk industry are pretty powerful beings. But really, the whole thing should be flipped. Like just scratch grain, scratch dairy. You want to do it, have fun, but you don't need it. We shouldn't be promoting what we don't need.
Vitamin K, where does that come from?
K1 is called phylloquinone. It comes from green leafy vegetables. So again, probably why most of us are low. We don't eat enough of them. In our gut, the bacteria, the probiotics, convert K1 to K2, and then K2 is what the active form is in the body. So, but you can also get it from fermented food like natto and gross things that nobody wants to. So now supplements come down. Like these guys that I'm giving away here, they just came in and just creamed everybody's price. Like it's like $8–10 less than the competitors. Like you know, we're starting to see. It used to be expensive when only a few people had it. Now it's just coming down, it's very cheap now.
You mentioned taking at least 4,000 units of vitamin D. I think you said you take 15,000 or even more than that.
Yeah, I don't condone. I don't tell people to do what I do, but yeah, I do.
So we could take more than 4,000.
I have a doctor who's a friend of mine, so if I'm curious about my vitamin D, I'm like, hey, check my vitamin D, and he does. So if you're going to be me and do what I do, I suggest you do it responsibly. I don't tell people to do what I do. I tell people to become sufficient. Anything better than negative is good. I tend to ride the higher. I tell people, I had a cold. I woke up sick once this year, sick, because I'm around sick people. Like, it's been an infirmary over there for 4 months, like just insanity. I woke up, I was like, oh my God. I took 75,000 units of vitamin D. Woke up next day,
Wow.
100%, yeah. What, I stood out in the sun for 3.5 hours? That's what my body would have made in 3.5 hours of sunshine. I'm like, bring it. I'm not toxic, my levels are still in range, I don't have hypercalcemia. They had Parmalat, they fortified milk, right? They put the vitamin D in the milk, and they goofed up, they put 1 million international units per cup of milk, and they released it. Health Canada was like, uh-oh. They tracked down the people who had consumed that milk, they checked their levels, they were off the charts. Nobody had hypercalcemia, nobody had any signs of toxicity. They drank 1 million units in 1 cup. Yeah, I know, it seems, these unit things are scary, but 1,000 units of vitamin D is 25/1 millionth of a gram. You couldn't see 1,000 units of vitamin D. Ask Darlene how hard it is to titrate up, how do you measure that? They have to literally add little fleck into so much and actually do the calculations on how much, like 1 drop, how does that have 1,000 units? Like 1 pill is 99.99999% olive oil, and just a little, but we say 1,000 units on that, and all of a sudden everybody's like, whoa.
And Albertast, you say, micro.
Really infinitesimal small amount.
Nice meeting you. Olive oil. I have read lately that some of the big Monsanto type companies are messing with olive oil and putting other oils in there. Do you have a list of olive oils that you would recommend as being pure olive oil?
No, but I respect that you'd ask me that. No.
Okay, because I know that's happening, but
I'm the lamest food technologist you've ever met in your life. Because I don't do a lot, like I live it and I eat it and I breathe it and I promote it, but I don't get too into the food part of it for, like I should, but I just.
Well, there was a lady did a present.
Like 80% corn syrup now and they can put
Yeah.
pure honey on there, like,
Yeah.
like they're just screwing with us, eh?
well, and they own the companies that used to be responsible way back.
Yeah.
So,
That's what
yeah.
that little store by,
Olivine, yeah. That's
She
great.
She spoke here last year.
Yeah,
so
she
we-
spoke here, yeah.
People asked about that before, so we asked her if she wanted to speak, and she spoke. I wasn't at that one.
Yeah, it was good, yeah, she was.
Okay. Yeah, because I know Badger Reese has olive oil out there now, and I wonder,
buy it from the small guys, you know?
Yeah.
They appreciate your money more too.
Oh, I don't think they need my money. Yeah, I get it.
I noticed you didn't mention sodium as part of vitamins and minerals. Like, what are your thoughts on it? I know
Yeah, it's
everybody's
accessible.
scared of sodium.
You need 2,000 milligrams a day just to function. In fact, 2 people today had low sodium. Like we see it all the time, right? We put people on hydrochlorothiazide or furosemide, these diuretics that are excreting sodium. It will mess you up. Like Darlene used to encapsulate salt. She's like, I hate that too. You know, actually salt capsules because people need it to get sodium. And people hate eating that much salt. So yeah, sodium is crazy. Every muscle, every cell needs sodium.
I was drinking club soda at work, and someone came to me and said, how much sodium is there in there? And I looked at her and said, huh? Why? You know, and I looked and like, oh, a little bit, but, and it just blew my mind that someone would be concerned over like 50 milligrams of sodium.
Well,
You know?
again, we're programmed to believe.
Yeah,
that, like,
I think it's old fashioned.
Well, the people programmed us weren't, consider it's doing the wrong thing in my opinion. But probably the biggest part of that is potassium is equally as important. And potassium comes from green leafy vegetables and avocados. And that's kind of where we're lacking. So too much sodium in light of too little potassium will kind of amplify the amount of sodium. But for you, for example, I know you eat some good example, but if you're eating a lot of greens and a lot of avocado and a lot, like your potassium side, you can go higher with your sodium. You need to keep balance more so than X amount.
Well, what's the difference between, your regular salt and your sea salt? Wouldn't it be better?
Well, scientifically, sodium chloride is sodium chloride. It doesn't matter if it came from the mountain, the sea, or wherever, Red Patch, or whoever's making salt these days. That doesn't matter. But sea salt has other trace nutrients, right? They have all the minerals that occurred that help our body utilize sodium and chloride better. Whereas refined white salt, they strip out everything else that's good for you, and you use sodium chloride. So, if at all possible, use natural salts. Even though they're non-iodized, use real food, not processed.
How about the Himalayan salt?
Himalayan, yeah, comes from the Himalayan or Dead Sea, or, they all have value. They all have different trace nutrients because of the location where they're mined, but.
There's been a lot of talk about dandelion root. People
Yeah.
were making claims for
Off the
curing
charts right
cancer.
now.
Curing
Off the
cancer.
charts. Traditional medicinal, all my suppliers are out of dandelion root. I used to visit quality assurance lead at Traditional Medicinal. It's a huge, it's owned by Higgins and Burke, which is the largest tea company in the world. These guys want something, they just smile and they get whatever they want. They can't get dandelion root now. Organic dandelion root is out. Because even the oncologists have sent people to us for
Yes.
dandelion root.
Yep.
So the teas are gone, the capsules are still around, but I don't know. Like, it cleans the liver, it has potassium, it helps the kidneys. I don't know the direct effect on tumor cells, but there's interest, I've heard preliminary in breast cancer.
There's going to be lots of it around, so.
Yeah, start picking, but then you're not picking from somebody who already uses Roundup. Yeah, go in the bush and find some good old school dandelions to start picking.
Yeah, just steam them.
Yeah, you can eat the tops, you can eat the roots, yeah, they're super good for you.
Yet they say they're weeds. Kill them.
Yeah, I know, kill the root with Roundup.
How much did you recommend for that?
The best dose is 20 milligrams.
We just have this here.
Yeah, 20 milligrams a day, and it always has to be in oil. Don't buy a tablet or a powder. It's fat soluble, so it has to be in oil. Like in a soft gel, usually it's
Oh,
not
okay.
in an oil emulsified form.
Speaking of Roundup, they were, for the past several years, at least 4 or 5 years anyways, they've been spraying the entire north where they plant these monoculture tree farms. And they spray the entire north with this Roundup
Yeah.
to keep the competing vegetation down.
Yeah, I picked blueberries.
Yeah, exactly, and that was one of the main concerns. Well, just before the blueberries were ready to be picked, they were spraying them.
We look where they sprayed them in the
Yeah.
last 5 years.
Terrible. It gets into the water, it gets into the animals, and the fish.
And you, you're top of the food chain. You're frustrating.
I was just saying, the first time I seen a health speaker about 20 years ago, he mentioned how the government got stats on people's nutrition. He said 85% of the population of Canada were deficient in nutrients. So when you talk to a lot of these people, you tell them, I don't got a problem, I have a glass of orange juice, I have this and that. I always say to them, why do you think you're the 15% of people that are not deficient?
Yeah, no, it's true. Health Canada said
Or meat decline.
91% of.
So it must be worse now, there wasn't GMOs that's bad,
Yeah.
they're not really eating the food, now they are.
They say 90% magnesium. They're lying about the other 10% of people. They think they're eating their 11 servings just because they lied on the survey, Like, there's a lot of deficiencies for sure. Even the government says there is.
I mean, every day you look at the paper back, I was talking to a friend about a little while ago, 30, 40 years ago, you never see somebody in the paper 40 years old. Every time I turn around, I can mention a bunch of names the last 3 weeks of people who passed away. You never used to see that. I remember back then, my friend's, twins, his family died. What did they die of? A car crash. Not deficient in something, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Look back at the newspaper, now it's every time you turn around, everybody's going to a funeral, and
It's true.
you try to tell them something and they,
I
think
think
it's sad.
Born sick.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, I think we've come a long way. Like I think we're seeing big guys like Nestle changing. We're seeing internet people promoting. We're seeing more consumers interested. We're seeing doctors shopping at my shop and calling me.
Still got ways to go.
Like it's like easy to say the world's shit because it is right now. So there's parts of it that are, for sure. But I also see I see where I started. I'm not that old. But I see where I started in this industry and where I am today and the growth and the trends, and Beth's seen it too, right? Like it used to be walk in a health food store, you were the weird one, right? Like you were, and now it's like, it's so mainstream. My kids would never throw a plastic, aluminum foil, a glass in the garbage can. They freaking, to them, that's weird. To me, when I was a kid, I was like, everything goes in the trash, right? Like,
Out the window, yeah.
Burning fuel, like the world has changed and we're going in the right direction. Let's hope we can all keep going that direction.
You were saying about gardens, I remember back in the 60s and 70s in Bay Street area, us guys, and a lot of other people used to go rake gardens.
Yeah.
Who rakes a garden now?
Yeah, no.
They don't know what a garden is. Can't find them.
Yeah. No, it's sad but true.
You used to sit in between the bean plants, so they're telling you when to eat and you're eating their peas, or,
Yeah.
and your garden's being raided or taking your carrots.
Is there a place or a doctor or a clinic that you can get your blood tested to see if there's any deficiencies in nutrients?
It doesn't work well.
No?
Blood work's a weird thing, and I do a lot. I don't do blood work, but I work with doctors all the time. Every day I see blood work. It's very subjective. It's an art, not a science. Like when we suck something from your right arm, what was going on in your left leg is not the same thing as what's going on in your right arm. Like we're seeing a snapshot, and a snapshot only means something when it's beside another snapshot. Like then we can see a trend, or we can see something going somewhere. But it's very hard to do that because nutrients, like all the water solubles, are in you and out of you and in you and out of you. And when they're in you, they're in your cells, they're in your liver, they're in your kidney, they're in your bones, all the minerals. Like what we see in the blood is just 5 seconds, right arm, We can make an assumption like deficiency, like on B12 or iron or vitamin D. You can kind of see if it's low, it's low. It probably is low. But it's really not true. The only way we see true is either to do
Regular sampling.
Yeah, we do regular sampling, and we kind of average the mean and all that stuff. But but the reality is, like, I don't want to tattle on it, but back in the day when I was employed at Janssen, we had a physician who was nice to us and just signed requisitions and said, "Tim, give her shit, man. Do whatever you want." And I did, because I was learning, right? I was just, well, hey, when you get an opportunity, open the door. So I would run like crazy battles on people. And like seriously, people would almost pass out by the time you drew their blood, they got their blood drawn, yeah. And we would do I did the same person 3 days in a row, exact same blood work, 3 days in a row. Sucker. Yes. And then we looked at their blood work, you'd be surprised how different it was. Like one person in 3 days, completely different numbers. So like it's weird when when a doctor tells you your cholesterol's high, well, is it high tomorrow? Is it high in 10 minutes? Like was it high in my leg? I don't know. Like, how do you know, right? So a lot of what we do is just really assumption. I don't know. Yeah.
What do you think of the live blood cell, where they're using the different type of?
Yeah, I think, and I mean no disrespect because I know the guy who does it. I think interpretation is the flaw. So I think you can say whatever you want to say and people believe you. And I mean no disrespect to him because I really like him. But it's easy to do that type of thing. It's easy, like I said, I'm not trying to not knock him. Doctors do it. It's easy to tell you, right? Oh, your triglycerides are 2. What do you know? You're like, oh shit, my triglycerides are 2, right? Like, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? But if they say it to you negatively, you believe it's a bad thing. The same thing with live blood cell. If the person says, oh, this is a big piece of yeast sitting there sucking on your white blood cell. Oh my word, big piece of yeast in my body sucking on a white blood cell. Like, I don't know. I think you can persuade people with interpretation. And I'm going to knock the natural people just as much as I knock the conventional people because I think what we're saying to people is just medicine through fear. I think we're scaring people on medications. I think fear, like I said when I started this, digestion, depression, anxiety, and sleep, top 4 categories. I think the world we live in is fear-mongering people to persuade them to purchase, to persuade them to take drugs, to persuade them not to eat fat. I think we need to flip that around and start supporting and educating, and positivity, I think, will drive it. I don't think fear is working.
First time you go for scans and that, some of the doctors, well, I guess they want you to go to them, like say, oh, I'm concerned about you, I'm concerned there's something wrong, like, they terrify you,
Oh, absolutely.
like.
Yeah, no, if you don't take this drug, you're going to die of a heart attack.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
I hear it every day. It's not true. You might die of a heart attack, but it's not because you didn't take the drug necessarily. Like, it's hey, it used to be, not even freaking 7 years ago, it used to be, you go to a doctor, your cholesterol's a little elevated, hey man, your cholesterol's a little elevated, switch your freaking diet, smarten up, move on, get off your ass, start walking. Like, come back in 3 months and still elevated, then I'm putting you on a statin drug. Like, it used to be that, now it's like, I don't even talk to you anymore, just go. Go. Like it's quicker, come on. It's just the machine, right? Like it's 45 seconds in the office, $45 a swipe,
Time is money.
So, I don't know.
But people all like the quick fix. They all like the quick fix.
Yeah,
Everybody
but
wants
it's
to.
not fixing it.
I know,
like it
but
too,
you
it's
still
quick
go
and
and they
fix, but
just
it's
take
just
their
quick and
advice
hurting
and.
you. I'm not
Yeah.
falling for it.
I was noticing you talk about vitamin D, but you don't say vitamin D3.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's the difference?
There's D2, ergocalciferol, and the only people making it anymore are drug companies. The prescription form is still D2. And D3 is from animal cholecalciferol. So our body uses D3 and not so much D2. We can use it, but it's not as active. Back in the day, we used to get D3 from cod liver, so it hurt animals,
Yeah.
right? And so the vegans and the vegetarians, everybody got pissed off. They're like, I'm not taking vitamin D, it's from cod. No, nowadays they get it from the lanolin of the sheep, so they're not hurting the animal, they're shearing the sheep, or they can get it from lichen, which is vegan friendly. So all of it on the market right now is D3. So we don't really have to say the 3 all the time anymore because unless you're on the prescription form, then you're on 3. But back in the day, we used to have to distinguish between the 2.